Hey there, Scaling Up Nation. It's Trace Blackmore. And if there's one thing we know as water treaters, it's that success comes from building strong partnerships. And that's exactly what North Metal and Chemical Company is all about. My friends at North Metal are committed to creating long-term relationships built on trust, reliability, and innovation. Their industry-specific expertise means they understand your challenges and work tirelessly to provide great Northwest products along with a personal touch. With dedicated technical support, North Metal and Chemical Company stands out as a partner who truly cares about your success in the industrial water treatment space. Head over to scalinguph2o.com/north and start building a partnership you can count on. Once again, that's scalinguph2o.com/north. North Metal and Chemical Company, serving the water treatment industry since 1921. Being a successful entrepreneur or leader doesn't mean you have to run on fumes. Dr. Andy Melton's Strategic Rhythm Reset helps high performers redesign their week so they can achieve more with less stress. During a 90-minute session, you'll dive deep into protecting your priorities and focus on your energy. You'll receive a personalized blueprint that balances business goals, relationships, health, and personal priorities. Afterward, a rhythm reset guide will summarize your insights and provide tools to keep you aligned, and a follow-up call ensures you stay on track. The benefits? Clarity on what truly matters. Freedom from overwhelm, better performance with less stress, a repeatable system, and momentum for long-term growth. Ready to reclaim your time and energy? Visit scalinguph2o.com/Andy Melton. Once again, that's scalinguph2o.com/ANDYMELTON. Don't wait, book your Strategic Rhythm Reset with Dr. Andy Melton today. Welcome to the Scaling Up H2O podcast, the podcast where we scale up our knowledge so we don't scale up our system. I'm your host, Trace Blackmore, and today we are continuing our special two-part series with AWT instructor and national sales manager for CH2O, Dan Merritt. Just days before the AWT technical training taking place in Frisco, Texas, March 10th through 13th, I am so excited about that. I'm going to be there. I hope that you are there. And I just can't wait. It is part of my favorite thing to do during the year because it's all about learning how to be a better water treater. It's all about learning new things. It's all about meeting new people. And I just can't wait. We are so close. So hopefully I will see you there. Now, AWT's technical training has been running for decades. And instructors like Dan and myself and others are on a committee that continually updates content, teaching methods, how we present, how we speak. There are just so many things that we do to try to make sure that every time we present, the next time is better. And take it from me, I have been to so many of these. I have learned so much every single time that I go, but because where I have been in AWT leadership and working on this committee, I have seen how good our presenters have become. And a lot of times somebody will know a topic and then they'll start teaching and they do a very fine job, but then they start getting comfortable. They start asking questions. How can I make things better? How can I connect better to the audience? And then you see them the next time or years later. And folks, I have to tell you, I am so proud of my fellow committee members, my fellow instructors. It has just been amazing to watch this incredible program get better and better each and every year. Now, somebody who's not an instructor, but he should be, we should get James McDonald. Now, James McDonald, of course, is instructing us each and every week on how we can maybe think about something a little bit differently and we can have fun in the process. Well, of course, I'm talking about Words with Water with James, and here it is.
Hello and welcome to Words of Water with James, the industrial water game show where I give you the definition and you get to guess the word or phrase being defined. Will you rise to the top or get blown down to try your luck another day? There's only one way to find out on Words of Water with James. Today's definition is a quantitative chemical analysis method to find the unknown concentration of a substance by gradually adding a solution with a known concentration until the reaction is complete, often signaled by an indicator's color change. Can you guess the word? The answer is titration. I'm not feeling it today, folks. No blowdown dunk into the basin.
Oh, man.
Wait, what are you doing? Ha ha ha. I guess they like it. They really like it. I'm James McDonald, and I look forward to seeing you next time on Words of Water with James.
Well, thank you, James. And Scaling Up Nation, you know what I'm going to say. I'm going to tell you about all the events that you need to go to so you can become a better industrial water treater. Well, I'm not going to do that today. I'm going to put all that work on you because we've already done the work for you. Have you been to scalinguph2o.com and navigated over to our events section? Well, folks, if you haven't, or if you haven't done it lately, our team here at Scaling Up H2O has gathered, has curated, has put together all of the events around water that we know of so you don't have to go to 50 billion places. Well, all those 50 billion places are right there on our events page. Maybe there's not 50 billion, but I think someday we might get there. Now, let's say you are looking through the list and you know a conference that is not listed there. Well, folks, we can't list everything. We don't know everything. But we have a community called the Scaling Up Nation that does know everything. So if you find something that is missing that needs to be on our events page, well, you're on the page. Go ahead and navigate over to our show ideas section and let us know what that event is. And I promise the great team here at Scaling Up H2O, they will fix that wrong and they will put that on the event section so other people can know about it and register as well. So I hope you've taken some time. I hope you've gone through that. And I really hope that you've got a calendar full of events that you want to attend because, Nation, let me tell you, if you want to up your game this year, that is how you do it because you're going to meet people you haven't met before. You might meet somebody like the friends that I talk about on this podcast all the time, and now you've got somebody to talk about water treatment with. Hey, I saw this weird thing. I don't know what I saw. I don't know how to fix it. I don't even know what it is. Let me describe it to you. Hey, I've got somebody I can describe it to because I went to one of these events, and now they can help me brainstorm and maybe even help me troubleshoot. Wow, what a great payoff by going to an event and meeting somebody new. But you're not just going to meet new people, you are going to learn new things. And I hope you learn something that you already know in a different way. Folks, when you can challenge the way that you already know information, or maybe you're challenging something on the way that you do something, you are now becoming the best in the industry because now you're challenging yourself. You're challenging how you've always done things. You're challenging how you've always thought about things. And that's where true growth happens because you're constantly, continuously improving on how you're thinking, how you're doing. And that is what I think makes the best of the best in industrial water treatment. Now, last week, we heard from my friend Dan Merritt, one of the instructors, and he's not just the instructor, he is the head of the education committee that puts on the technical training that's happening just next week, March 10th through 13th. Now, you can still sign up for that. We're going to have all the information on our events page. You know the website. I just said it about 10 times. So if you go there, you can still register. You can still get there. There are still spaces available. And I sure hope you do because I want to see you there. Now, in part one, Dan shared his journey into water treatment and how his teaching background shapes the way that he approaches training. Today in part two, we focus more on what happens inside the AWT classrooms, how the materials are taught, how stories and math come together. You know, math is my favorite topic, and how you can position yourself or your team to get the maximum return on the time and travel that you are investing to come to AWT technical training. Dan talks about the reality that boiler and cooling systems are driven by many simultaneous chemical reactions, not just one single neat reaction, and how AWT's training helps participants think through that complexity instead of chasing the wrong problem. We also revisit some very memorable stories, like the infamous softener cleaning story that turned into a room full of foam, and how those never again moments become mental guardrails for safer, smarter practices. Nation, here is the second part of my interview with Dan Merritt.
And I have another story about Angela and that exam that I think your audience would find amusing at my own expense. That exam is a healthy exam. I think they allot 4 or 5 hours for that exam.
It's 4, I believe, yeah.
Yeah, and the last time I took it, which was 2016, I used pretty much all of my time to go through that. And again, because I was a teacher and I wrote tests, I have my own procedure on how to take technical exams. And I've taken that exam 3 times. So I took it in 2004, and that was the first time I got certified. I took it again in 2010, and that was when they had revamped the exam. So they actually invited CWTs to come and take the exam, and then there was like an added portion. They said, "Can you take this other portion and maybe judge, are these questions good or bad," or stuff like that. And then I had to take it again in 2016 because I had lost my CWT.
I don't think I knew this.
Yeah, so in 2010, I took the exam because I needed to be recertified. So I took it in, I believe it was April or March of 2010, and it was in Vegas. And this was back when you would take the exam the day after the course.
On a Scantron.
On a Scantron. That's exact. So you're back in 11th grade, and you're filling in bubbles.
All our Gen Zers are going, what's this Scantron they're talking about?
I think they still have them out there. So I had taken the exam, but what happened was in 2010, and then in June of that year, I received the little card, the AWT card that said recertification 2010. Well, at the time, our office manager would put together our recertification information, and she would send it off. And at the time, CH2O would pay for that. and we would get our certification. So I had let her know I took the exam, no problem. Well, what I didn't take into account is that she left. She left the company sometime between then and June. Well, in June of 2010, I get the card that says recertification 2010. Well, what I thought that meant is that I had recertified in 2010. So let the record show that's not what it means. It means that you must recertify in that year. So I thought I had it, and I went for another 5 years with my business cards that said CWT, with my LinkedIn profile that said CWT. So now fast forward to 2015, and I'm 5 years up. I have to recertify. And at the time, the AWT, if you did any sort of water treatment training, you could submit that for credits. At the time, I did a lot of internal training, and then I also did some training for some other industry, some union pipe fitter places, our boiler inspectors meeting. I would do training like that. I also did training at the local community college for boiler operators. So I'm like, oh, I've got like 8 trainings under my belt. So I had emailed Angela in April of that year, and in June of 2015, she sends me an email that says, hey, we noticed that you have CWT on your LinkedIn profile. You haven't had a CWT since 2010. You have to remove it.
Oh, wow.
So I immediately called Angela and said, well, wait a minute. I took the exam. And she said, we show you took the exam. We show you passed the exam, but you never did your paperwork. And suddenly I realized that our office manager, who I had just blindly thought was going to do that, never did it. And I had been working for 5 years without my CWT. So we had a bunch of back and forth until we kind of figured out what happened. And she came back and said, I'm really sorry, but you're going to have to do it all over again. So I signed up for 2016 to redo the exam. I had to do all the paperwork again, get all the recommendations again, start from scratch. So we're testing. So now it's 2016. I finished the test. I'm in the exam room. Angela is the proctor. And I finished. I walked up. I hand her my paperwork. She takes my paperwork and she says, thank you very much. She puts it on the side and she says, right. Now don't forget your paperwork. I said, yes, ma'am.
And that was a pretty good Scottish accent.
That was a bed.
It was better than mine.
I did live in England for a while.
So the moral of the story is,
don't forget your paperwork. That's the moral is. So I had to do that test 3 times, and the last time was literally to get my CWT back. So I find it ironic that the next year you asked me to train, and then
I didn't realize you had such a spotted history when I asked you.
I know. And now I've just admitted it to the world and everything.
Yeah, we'll have to reconsider everything.
I know. So, but that is my cautionary tale, is that you need to verify your own paperwork when submitting for the CWT.
That is great advice. Now, you mentioned a whole slew of classes that are going on during the AWT Technical Training Series, and you didn't even mention all of the classes.
That's right.
So I've got to write them all down to keep them straight. So can we help the Scaling Up Nation know the menu of offerings that AWT has twice this year?
Absolutely. So it starts with the sales training. So the 1-day sales training that you put on and have put on, that will continue. What is also now going to be new is Colin Frayne has done what he would call a membrane separations technology course, a 1-day course. And it was almost a history of membrane separation technology from the beginning till current day. And Colin was just a delightful presenter and just a wealth of information and knowledge from his experience literally all over the world. Colin officially stepped down last year. Last year was his final year. And so we are re-envisioning that class to be more of a practical applications class that deals with mainly ROs and softeners. And how do we do site surveys for those? How do we do maintenance on those? And it's going to be a one day that just focuses on all those. So it's going to be a kind of a deep dive into the application. If I'm a field tech and I am out and have to maintain those, I have to work on those. Or if I'm in the sales and I'm selling into a customer, what would I need to know? Why would my customer need an RO or a softener? What are the calculations that I need to know? So we're kind of re-envisioning that class to make it a little bit more applicable to the field service techs and the sales staff within the water treatment industry. So that's continued to be a one-day class. And then, like we mentioned before, the fundamentals and application class, which is remaining the same. That's kind of 0 to 3 years. And then the program design and operations class was really meant to kind of bridge the gap between the beginner water treatment specialist and then the more advanced or senior water treatment specialist. So we're kind of bridging that gap, like the 2 to 4 year window is where we're going for with that program design and operation class. And in those years, that's usually when companies are saying, hey, we want you to put a proposal together, especially if you blend the service and sales model together. And we want you to go out there and be able to survey, and we want you to put this proposal together for a customer. That's the goal behind that. And then the water treatment training is kind of the more advanced water treatment training that we've been talking about. Those are all 3-day courses: the fundamentals and application, program design and operation, water treatment, 3-day classes. The other 3-day classes that we offer concurrently, the other one is the ASSE 1280 training, and that has been a fantastic class. So if you are looking to get your ASSE certification, that 1280 certification.
Yeah, an amazing team teaches that.
Yeah, that team is top notch. I know you can do that class online, but I would argue you will not get the depth of expertise that you'll get at the AWT training. So these are some of the top people in the industry doing that training, and their own careers are on the line in working in that field. So they're bringing all of that expertise into that training. So would definitely recommend that class if you need that certification. And I'll say that they also are doing an in-person recertification. So if you need to be recertified for your 1280 certification, then they also will do a 1-day certification on the beginning of the training. So the beginning of the training, it's 4 days of training. That first day, they will do an 8-hour recertification. And then the other course that we are expanding in 2026 is the wastewater training. I'm just so happy with how the wastewater training and the trainers that have come on board to help that. So we've brought on Brian Leota has come on. Steve Boudet, who is the wastewater subcommittee chair, is on that. Bart Ramplin is on that. And then Chris Fox has historically been one of the trainers on that. That group has really rebuilt. And I got to give a shout out to Kevin Cope. So Kevin Cope, who retired 2 years ago, he like officially retired 2 years ago. We brought him back to rebuild that wastewater class. And so we really thank Kevin for coming back and helping to do that.
And he is a huge fan of this show. He has listened to every single episode.
Oh, that is awesome. And I know your viewers can't see this, but I just have to say, he provided us a piece of artwork.
Mine is on the wall behind my monitor.
Right. I just love that there's more to us than meets the eye.
If I can speak to that just a little, because they can't see what we're talking about. So Kevin took Colin Frane's book and he took pages out of it. And then he asked us, what's your favorite impressionist, I think? Van Gogh. And that's about the limit of my knowledge with that.
Right.
But I think I've got one of Starry Night. Anyway, so he did all of these for us, and then he framed them, he signed them, he put a card to them, And it was a thank you for us being trainers. And it was just fantastic. And you've got yours framed and displayed on your office wall. I have the same thing. He's an amazing artist.
Yeah, so big shout out to Kevin. But yeah, so I'm really excited that that course got re-envisioned. So we will be having a wastewater, it's the similar wastewater class that has been done over the last several years. And that's going to be in, again, this upcoming training in March in Frisco, Texas. The next training is going to be in November, and they're doing kind of a wastewater 201. So the first one we would call a wastewater 101, but the next one is going to kind of be a 201 class. So they're kind of doing a tiered wastewater training now. So for those who have, if you've not been involved in wastewater before, it's kind of new and your company is thinking, gosh, should I get into wastewater? That intro to wastewater class is the right class. But if you have done jar testing before and you've dabbled in that and you want to kind of take your knowledge up to the next level, then the November class would be the one.
Dan, let me insert the actual dates. I've got them here. So
Yep.
session 1 is March 10th through 13th. Session 2 is November 11th through 14th. And I have the question, I think some other Scaling Up Nation members will have. If I can't attend session 1 in wastewater, am I still able and recommended to attend session 2?
I think you can. I don't think there's going to be a restriction like, okay, you've got to take one before you take two. Because to be honest, if you and I drank by a fire hose, why don't we let everyone else drink by a fire hose with that kind of training? But I think just to know that is a little bit more advanced. But again, the trainers are excellent, and I would definitely recommend. And if you want to go to number, let's say you can only go to the other training, then I think that there's enough material out there. I would recommend being familiar with some of the terms first, is that you know what some of the treatment terms are or the equipment terminology prior to going. Then that kind of helps get you up to speed.
And tickets are on sale now. Seats are limited. Act fast before it's too late. All that stuff.
Agreed.
All right, Dan, this has been great. I've got so many more questions that I haven't asked you. I think I still have asked you one question this entire interview. Well, let me ask you this. We have such a broad range of listeners throughout the Scaling Up Nation. We have people that just got their test kit issued within the last month or so. And we have had people that have been in this industry for decades. So let's separate out those two. So newbies and veterans. So Dan, you have an open mic. You have these new people coming into our industry. What advice do you want to give them?
I would say that learning as much as you can from the people who are around you, especially within your company, because that's where you start. You come in and you're thinking, what is this water treatment thing? And you may be like me in that you thought, I'm just going to do this as a temporary gig. And what I have found in this industry is that it really gave me a career that was unlooked for. I never saw this as being a permanent career, but it challenged me to use parts of myself and parts of my brain that I didn't think that I would be good at, to be honest. It allowed me to grow in how I communicate with others. I swore up and down that I would never be a salesman. And now I'm the
Now you're the
salesman.
sales manager.
So because I had a vision of sales, and this just scrapped all of the negative connotation I had about sales, because I'm not just trying to sell you encyclopedias, or I'm not trying to sell you something door to door. I'm selling you a solution that I know is going to help you. I know it can help save you money. And I can actually use that nerdy part of my brain that likes the technical side. And I can take that technical stuff and I guess to use a secular word, is make it sexy. I can take that technical side of mine and make it appealing And whereas I was, some of us grew up as nerds and we just weren't that popular, right? And now I can take that side of my brain and actually be appealing to people, and it's actually useful. It's not appealing for the sake of being appealing, but it can be useful. And so I would say for people who are just getting into this industry, it's a wonderful way to grow. That was my experience. Now I'm responsible to helping the new people who come into our company is to see that vision that, hey, this is going to be a great industry. Sometimes, depending the way that your structure of the company is, you might be the face of your company when you go in and see an account. And that's sometimes a lot of responsibility, but then there's a lot of trust that's placed in there. And that gives you a platform to build that trust, and it helps build you as a professional, no matter what you go into. So if you end up leaving the water treatment to go somewhere else, I think it's an amazing way to how to build that confidence within you. Again, not just for sales, but how to communicate technical information. And so I feel like we have a great opportunity to help build professionals.
That's a great answer. So let's do the same question, but now for people that have been in the industry for 24 years.
Yeah, yeah, because that is definitely where we are at. And again, we have friends who may have been doing those things, and you're in your second or third decade. And I got to the point was like, well, is this the only thing that I'm going to do? I got to that point as well. And what I have seen is that when you start to give back to the community and you start to train other people with what you know, there is a level of fulfillment that comes with that really goes beyond money, and it goes beyond your personal aspirations. And AWT is part of that, right? We're giving back what we know to now another generation or others. And you're helping to build an industry that really is a solid industry, and it's not going to go away. So the water treatment industry is not something that you can do remotely. You will never lose our job. There is always going to be the need for people to troubleshoot water systems. And the problems are not getting easier. They're actually becoming more complex. And it's going to require your knowledge, Mr. Senior person out there, Mr. Experienced Veteran, is that we need your knowledge to help, even the way we look at those problems. So I think being a mentor is a great way to be able to take that experience that we have and be able to translate that, to give that away to those that are in our company, or like again, AWT or other institutions, that you're able to go and give back. And then it's really meaningful when you're on a committee that either publishes a paper or does some technical research. And I got a great amount of satisfaction out of the 24 AWT convention when I was able to present on sales. And I specifically chose sales because I swore up and down I would never be in sales. And it was transformative over my career to overcome my fear of that and then be able to talk about it in a meaningful way. So that adds a layer of satisfaction to my job.
Well, I just hear Mark Lewis in the back of my head. And so I'm going to say, if he was here, what he would say, and you've heard him say this, that in the very beginning, when you just start out, it's so easy to advance your knowledge because everything is brand new. But over about a year's time, you're probably going to be pretty successful with what you've seen over and over again with just the first year. Well, after that first year, you've got a choice on what type of water treater are you going to be. Are you going to be somebody that's really good with the first year stuff, but every year after that is wash, rinse, repeat? Or are you going to be dedicated to raise the bar in this industry and continue to learn, because it's much harder to do that after your first year?
Yeah, it's easy to get comfortable. It's easy to be comfortable, especially if you're successful. And you can be comfortable in a rut. And I think that there's a bit of a danger with us when we plow the same rut over and over again. And you have to make a conscious effort to get out of that rut and to do something different. And I think training helps you do that. I think starting to learn other technologies, like if you've never done wastewater before, you're able to go into that or look at that. We have wastewater products that I never knew we had. We have cleaning and sanitation products that I just never knew we had. And we do a little bit of chlorine dioxide, and I didn't know what that was for. And when I first started, it was like boilers, towers, loops, period. That's all. That is all I want to do. And I was kind of forced into doing some of these other things, and I just had to learn them. And the other thing is management is just because you are an excellent salesperson doesn't necessarily mean you have the same skills to manage people.
That is so true.
I have felt that's been a big learning curve for a lot of people who, man, I'm really successful as a salesperson or as a technical person. So they promoted me, right? They made me a manager. And I feel like I'm failing at that because it's another different skill set. And so I had to learn, gosh, what makes a good leader? How do I communicate with people? And I can do tests. I can do tests and write a service report, and the equipment will not talk back to me. And the chemistry will not have an attitude. But being able to navigate people, that's a whole different skill set. And so being able to improve that and gaining that, and again, none of us are perfect, but being able to have that kind of management skill with people, I think there's a level of satisfaction when you're able to give away your knowledge and they appreciate that. And again, I think it boils down to satisfaction. How can we continue to have satisfaction in our careers as we get older?
Well, Dan, this has been a great interview. I've had a lot of fun. I think the Scaling Up Nation have really learned a lot about both of us during this interview. So I hope they enjoy it. This is a two-part interview that we're doing. But I'm not quite done with questions yet. I'm going to ask you more than one question. So I'm going to ask you some lightning round questions. Are you ready for them?
I am ready.
All right, lightning round question number one. If you can go back in time to talk to your former self on your very first day as an industrial water treater, what advice would you give yourself?
I would say make sure you always wear your PPE. That is what I would say. And I gave that question a little bit of thought. And because honestly, don't worry about making mistakes. We all make mistakes. And that's how you learn, right? Our Bruce Kettrick story was perfect, right? We all learn from mistakes. That would be probably my second thing is just don't worry about failure. Failure is not the failure. Quitting is the failure. There's always going to be something that happens and just keep moving forward. But I actually had to say, wear your PPE.
It's a public service
It's a
announcement.
public service because, and I hate to say it, I got glutaraldehyde smeared all over the palm of my hand one time. And I can't stand the smell of it anymore. And it sucked all the oils out of the palm of my hand. And I couldn't feel the surface for a while. And I could hold hot pots without a pot holder, and I got in trouble for
That's
that.
not good, Dan. That's not good.
I'm going to tell all these stories. People are going to be like, I don't think you should be the chair anymore.
Now, I'm sure this poster was in your chemistry class. It was a picture, and I think it said something like Jane didn't wear her PPE. And she had like a cane and some sunglasses because she was blind. And then it said Jane wishes she did. Was that in your chemistry class? Do you remember that?
It was not in mine, but I would have put it up.
I don't know what they're doing in Georgia. It was over here.
I would have put up. If you'll indulge me on one more story. So talking about PPE. So when I was a tech at Industrial Water Engineering, Bernadette Combs would come down as an intern and work for her dad. And because I was the newbie, then she would ride with me. and I would take her around. And one time we went to the Albuquerque wastewater treatment plant, which was one of our accounts, and they had a sulfuric acid feed injection into their tower to control pH. And I had to change the injection valve. So the line had gotten plugged, so we had shut off the acid, and we were just letting that line flush for several days. And I was coming back to change it. So she was with me, and now I was all suited up. So I had my face shield and I had an apron. But because I was just changing a fitting, I had all my gloves, but I didn't put on rubber boots. I just had my normal work boots, steel toe work boots. So I am changing a fitting, and I've shut everything off. Well, the injection point goes into a line that goes about 30 feet up. So, as most of you know, there's pressure when you go up with a column of fluid. And as I'm undoing this fitting, I remember having this thought, well, I wonder how much pressure is behind here. And as I got to that, the fitting blew out in my hand, and I got doused with probably about a quart of concentrated sulfuric acid.
What was the concentration? Do you remember?
I think it was the 96 bomb, or
Oh, that's bad stuff. That's
whatever
yeah.
whatever the stuff was, right? And I get it sprayed. Now I'm all covered. And I actually told Bernadette, because it's a concrete room, so she's standing outside. I get doused with acid because there was still some in this line that I was unaware of. So I jump back, and I told her, okay, stand back. I go outside, pull the chemical shower, which was right outside. I rinse myself off. We hose out the whole room. I replace the fitting. Took about 45 minutes. I look down at my pants, and I had an apron, a chemical apron, but I still had probably 6 inches of my jeans that were exposed. After I rinsed myself off, it looked like I had been shot with bullets through my jeans. So just these perfect size, like 9mm bullet holes in my jeans. And I wasn't hurt. We cleaned everything up. I looked at Bernadette and I said, please don't tell your dad.
Well, you're telling him now. He listens to the podcast. So we had a customer that ordered the wrong type of acid. It was the exact acid that you were just describing, and it was way too concentrated for their system. And they decided to dilute it themselves.
Oh my
and
gosh.
Yes, they melted the plastic drum and really cleaned and etched the floor.
Do as you oughta, add acid to water.
I don't think I've heard that before. We are learning so much. All right, lightning round question number 2. What are the last few books that you've read?
I read Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek. Great book about culture. So that was really my takeaway, was just a really excellent book about culture and how we, and he actually goes into the brain chemistry of why we have joy, what communities do for us. And that was a really good book. It's called The Shattering Peace by John Scalzi. So this is not a water treatment book. This is a sci-fi book. And John Scalzi has a series out there called The Old Man's Wars. And if you're into sci-fi, they're delightful. So but it was one of the last books I read. So we're currently reading The AI-Driven Leader. And so far that I'm not done with it, but holy cow, that's a fascinating read.
Yeah, that's our mastermind book this quarter. I can't wait to have those discussions. That's going to lend some great discussions.
Yeah, and it's not all about AI. It's really about leadership and in this case, tools to help your leadership. And then the other book I will mention, as I read, is Accidental Superpower by Peter Zeihan. Not a mastermind book, but I did hear about Peter Zeihan from the mastermind. And so that I really got into him as a geopolitical analyst. So,
well, we will make sure to have that list on our show notes page. So if anybody else wants to read like Dan, we will make it very easy for you to find those titles. All right, lightning round question number 3. Dan, when they make a movie about your life, who do you want playing Dan Merritt?
So I immediately thought of Matthew Broderick.
Okay. Ferris Bueller.
And I'm just going to say this is we all grew up with him and he was a goof, right? And I'm kind of a goofball, right? So he just plays that kind of character. I saw him in an internet show about 10 years ago and I looked at him and holy cow, I was like, and he's older than me, but in that show, he looked just like me. And because I've realized I'm 55, and every time I still think I'm in my 30s, right? So I just still think I act and talk the way I do in my 30s. But then I go by a mirror and I'm like, oh, who's the old guy? And that's what I think about Matthew Broderick. I'm like, isn't he in his 20s? It's like, well, no, he's 60 now. So I did say Matthew Broderick. I would say if you're going to play someone from my youth, the way I did back then, I would have picked Timothy Chalamet.
Okay.
So if they were going to play my youth, because I was skinny.
It'll be a progressive story. There'll be several actors that will have to take on the part.
There you go.
All right. Well, this is my last and final question, lightning round question number 4. If you could talk to anybody throughout history, who would it be with and why?
Oh my gosh, that is such a difficult question. I read that and I was like, wow,
that's why it's number 4.
Oh my gosh, that is hard. There's a lot of obvious things you would want. And so as far as historical people, I thought of this and I said, I think I would want to talk to Jonah. So the biblical character Jonah, who was swallowed by a fish in the story, and he lived for 3 days in a fish. And how could you imagine living in a fish and then being thrown up onto the shore? And he preached to an entire nation, and that entire nation repented, and there was no miracles, at least recorded. So the power of his preaching alone changed an entire city state at the time. So I thought about that as a powerful speaker. And as dumb as it sounds, what did he say? How did he say that? How could he have, just by his words, influence an entire city?
Not dumb at all. That's fascinating.
And so that was my historical figure. I have to admit, though, if I really could do that, I would talk to my father.
Mm-hmm.
And so my father has passed away. I believe your father has passed away. And if I could have an hour with my dad, that would really be the one that I could do.
For those of you out there that your dads are still around, take advantage of it.
Oh my goodness, absolutely.
Dan, I think we have taken advantage of you being on the Scaling Up H2O podcast. We scheduled an hour. We went a little over that, but it's okay. I sure enjoyed it. I know the Scaling Up Nation enjoyed it, and I want to thank you for coming on the podcast.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure. Thank you, Trace.
Well, that wraps up our part 2 conversation with Dan Merritt and our 2-week focus on the AWT technical training. Dan reminded us that while the math and the chemistry are essential, it's the blend of fundamentals, stories, and reputation over time that turns information into intuition that you can use in the field. Now, we talked about real systems being messy, multiple reactions and forces at play in boilers and cooling towers, and AWT's technical training designed to help you recognize patterns, weigh competing factors, and identify where the real problem is. Stories like my favorite story, Bruce Kettrick's story about cleaning the softener and foaming up an entire mechanical room, and you being able to, in your mind's eye, see that very thing going on. And if you're like me, even envision Bruce Kettrick Sr. getting on a ladder and cleaning the top of the walls. That's a picture that I have whenever Bruce tells that story. Folks, I heard that story for years, and I never got sick of that story. I never said, I heard that last year. He said that 2 years ago, because it was so meaningful. And then he would actually put some learning tools around that so you could not only learn from that story, but you could start having your own stories so you can teach other people. And now Bruce is retired from training. Bruce Ketrick was the one that started the AWT technical training. He is definitely the one that brought it to where it is today. He is one of my heroes. He is one of my mentors, and I am sure glad that he decided to volunteer for the AWT and spend countless hours training his competitors on how to be better water treaters so they could compete better with him. And he did all that to raise the bar in the industrial water treatment industry. Nation, that is the goal of this podcast. I sure hope we're doing that. I know we're doing that if we are getting you to go to the AWT technical training. And if you are heading to AWT's technical training, again, it's March 10th through 13th in Frisco, Texas, consider bringing specific system data, recent challenges, or even testing results. We're not going to violate any confidentiality, but with these things, you can mentally run through them. And the concepts that you hear in class, you now have some real data and real instances and real events that you can mentally walk through and apply right there in the class the things that you are talking about. And if you lead a team, think back about how you're going to teach and reinforce what you've learned with that team. Now, if you've had to convince somebody to pay for you to go, to allow you time to go, maybe you've had to redistribute some of your responsibilities and accounts so you do have time to go, well, hey, that's a huge investment. How are you going to prove to whoever invested in you to go to AWT so you can invest in your knowledge and your career that it was a good investment? How do you prove to them it was a great investment? And how you do that is I want you to figure out one thing that you're going to bring back from that technical training, and you are going to train your entire team on that particular topic. Maybe it's safety. Maybe it's a testing method. Maybe it's something that your company is having an issue with. Whatever it is, I want you to change your paradigm about who you are at that AWT technical training, because you're not a student now. You went as a student, but you are attending as an instructor, and you're going to take that information that you're learning, you're going to anticipate how you're going to teach it, you're going to anticipate the questions people are going to ask you, just like the question that you asked the instructor that taught it to you. And then you're going to take that information, you're going to make it your own, and you are going to teach your team. Maybe you're even going to throw some of your own stories, because that's how we really elevate what it is that we're learning, because we're now able to produce that in our mind's eye, and we can see ourselves walking with you into that mechanical room. We can see how you're diagnosing that boiler. We can see how you're running that test, because you're describing that in your story. And that takes that knowledge even deeper in my brain so I can recall it later, and it allows me to learn that information better. So what's the story you're going to tell, and what is the information that you are going to train? And Nation, if you do all of that, I promise, if you talk to the same person that sent you to training this year and you do all of the things I just mentioned, they're probably going to come to you and expect you to go to training next year, because you brought so much back. You took an investment that they put into you, and you multiplied it by 10 because essentially 10 people went to that training and they just paid for you to go. Nation, I hope that that is how you are going to attend the AWT technical training. And again, I hope when you're there, I know you're going to be busy. I know you're going to be taking notes. I know you want to meet all the instructors. It is my hope that you take just a little bit of time to come up and say hello to me. I would love to meet you. I want to know what you think about this show. I want to know, is there something you want us to talk about on the show? Is there a guest that you want me to interview? Whatever it is, I just want to say hi. I want to personally thank you for being part of the Scaling Up Nation, and I want to thank you for investing in yourself and being at the AWT technical training. Nation, as you can tell, I love going to technical training. It's my favorite thing that I do all year long because of all the things we've been talking about the last 2 weeks. We've dedicated the last 2 episodes to AWT technical training and you and your career and making you invest in yourself to become a better industrial water treater. Folks, I love bringing this podcast to you. I love the interviews we do. I love that we are all part of the Scaling Up Nation. And Nation, next week, I'll have a brand new episode for you. But until then, I hope you have a great week, and I hope I see you at AWT's technical training. Take care, folks. Ready to boost your water treatment expertise? Our Certified Water Technologist Prep course is designed to give you the confidence and skills you need to sign up for the Certified Water Technologist examination. Test your knowledge with our 100-question practice exam and learn what you need to succeed. Go to scalinguph2o.com/CWT prep to get started today.